Kaiser Wheels are some of the nicest and dependable wheels on the market today. Located in Orange City, Iowa, Kaiser Wheels are dedicated to giving you the most for your hard-earned dollar. Kaiser Wheels are used by some of today's top racers.
Hey, this is Hunter Schoenberg.
Hi, this is Brian Clausen.
This is Shane Cottle.
I love my Kaiser Wheels. Be wiser, buy Kaiser.
For more, visit KaiserWheels.com or call 712-737-3053. Kaiser Wheels, we expect the results you dream about.
Sawyer Chassis out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma is one of the leaders in manufacturing and producing microsprints for customers all over the nation, having accumulated over 130 wins already in 2012, most recently a top 5 sweep at the Mike Phillips 66 Memorial. Sawyer Chassis clearly has the advantage over the competition. You can visit us online at www.sawyerchassis.com.
Yeah! Sawyer Chassis all the way, baby!
Trust what works. Trust the unparalleled performance of a Sawyer Chassis.
Welcome to night number 1 of the 2012 Race for Life Donnie Ray Crawford Memorial. Heavy hearts filled the pits and stands Thursday night at Port City Raceway to remember the true hero and fierce competitor that was Donnie Ray. The field for this year's event was split into 2 nights of action. Night number 1 had 102 cars competing on the bull ring that is Port City Raceway. 5 classes took to the track tonight in heats and qualifiers for passing points. The top point accumulators would earn their spots in the Night 1's A feature. A class started the night off and Jason Tracy opened the show with a heat win and a qualifier win. Jake Rosario showed his strength as well in the A class by also winning both his heat and his qualifier. The other heat and qualifier winners were Brittany Yarwood, Christian Kinnison, Trey Markham, and Frank Flood. Next up was the restricted class. Jace Randolph and Bailey Hughes won their heat races. Jason McDougall and Kaylee Bryson would go on to win their qualifiers. After the restricted class finished up their heat races, it was the non-wings' turn to take to the Port City's tricky track. Harley White would start on the pole of her heat race and hang on to take the checkered flag. Frank Flood and Trey Lambert would also win their heat races, and the qualifier winners would be Trey Markham, Kyle Harris, and Cody Cordell. The sportsman class would take to the track next for their heat races and qualifiers. The 4 heats and 4 qualifiers would see a different winner in each race taking the checkered flag. Craig Carroll, Matt Taylor, Dave Nicholson, and Jeremy Bowers would all win their heat races, while John Stowe, Ken Simmons, Jeremy Wickham, and Cody Cole would win their qualifiers. Andrews looked as though he was going to be the car to beat tonight. However, Josh Pickles had seen enough of the Chris Andrews show and went on to win his heat and qualifier, letting Chris know that he wasn't going to just walk away with tonight's show. There were 3 B features in competition tonight. First up was the A-Class B feature. Jeff Fry would show that he had the strength to start from the pole and pick up the win, transferring himself into tonight's A feature. Also transferring were Chris Wilson, Joey Baker, and Raymond Moore. Next up was the non-wing B feature. 8 drivers started the race, all hoping to transfer themselves into the A. Halfway through the B, while furiously racing with several drivers, Kevin Bear would catch the outside wall with his right rear, bouncing it off the wall and right into oncoming traffic, which would leave him taking a nasty flip on the backstretch. Kevin would exit the car under his own power, but the car was pretty torn up. Blake Edwards would hold off Harlan Holsey, David Baker, and Ryan Ratliff for the win and the top spot of the 4 transfers. In the Sportsman B feature, Ricky Glover Sr. and Cody Cole would bring the field to the green flag. Glover would be able to hold off Chris Doss, Cody Cole, and Brandon Henson for the win, and all 4 were headed to tonight's A feature. After the B features were complete, it was time to see who the top 8 drivers would be that were going to be the first to lock themselves into Saturday night's A features. The first A feature on track was the A class. Jason Tracy would lead the 16-car field to the green flag and take the lead, but it would be short-lived as the yellow would come out just after completing the first lap for a spinning car off at turn 2. On the restart, Tracy would lead Markham, Rosario, and Flood to the green, but again the yellow would fly for a car jumping the cushion and getting into the wall. Next restart, Tracy would hammer the throttle, but Markham, Rosario, and Flood wouldn't let him get out too far. Tracy and Markham would work the low side as Rosario banged the cushion lap after lap. On lap 7, Rosario would use the top line to get around the second-place car of Markham and start his assault on the 25 of Tracy. By lap 8, Rosario had the lead as Markham saw Rosario use that top lane and move up there himself. Tracy would also move to the top, but that let the door open for Markham to drive by on the bottom for second. On lap 12, Rosario found himself in lap traffic, and in turn 4 there was a lap car that got crossed up and dove into the infield, but came right back up on the track, almost planting Rosario in the front stretch wall. The pole sitter Tracy would find himself turned around in turn 4 late in the race, bringing the field and Markham back to Rosario for another shot. On the restart, Markham would launch his own wheel-to-wheel attack on Rosario, taking the lead with 2 laps left and going on to score the win, locking himself into the A-class portion of Saturday night's show. Rosario, Flood, Wisely, Holsey, Moore, Carroll, and Weeks would all also lock themselves into Saturday night's show. The second class to take to the track was the restricted class. Tristan Oakes and Mickey Walker would lead the field to the green. After the field initially stacked up on the start, they would spread out, and the top 3 of Oakes, Walker, and McDougal would have a 3-car battle for the lead until the caution would fly for the stalled Bailey Stringer. On the restart, the top 3 resumed their hard-fought battle with Oakes and Walker on the bottom and McDougal on the top, who would take the second spot in turn 3. McDougal would get a run off of turn 2 on the next lap and take the lead from Oakes in turn 3. From that point on, McDougal would show his strength and go on to take the victory for himself and his team, locking him into Saturday night's restricted Class A feature. Also locking themselves into Saturday night's A feature were Mickey Walker, Grady Chandler, Tristan Oakes, Blake Holland, Jace Randolph, Hunter Fisher, and Bailey Hughes. Next up was the non-wing A feature. Cody Cordell and Chris Andrews would bring Trey Markham and Frank Flood and the rest of the 16-car field to the green. On lap 10, Jordan Herman would use a lap car to pick off Andrews, despite Andrews' efforts to keep the spot, and now set his sights on the leader. But on lap 13, while working lap traffic, Andrews would take it 3 wide with Herman and a lap car, with the end result Herman spinning the lap car out and having to go back to the end of the field. On the restart, Cordell was hounded lap after lap by Andrews. Cordell kept his car on the bottom lane the whole race. Andrews tried everything. With 3 laps to go, Flood and Markham would catch the leader and second-place cars, but coming to the white flag, Flood would jump a tire, and that would be the last shot he had at the leaders. Cordell held off Andrews, led every lap of the Night 1 non-wing A feature, locking himself into Saturday night's big show. Those locked in for Saturday night's show are Cordell, Andrews, Markham, Flood, Harris, Edwards, White, and Ryan Truitt. The fourth A feature of the night was the sportsman class. Dave Nicholson and Randy Myers would bring the field to the green flag from the front row. Randy Myers would jump out to the lead in front of Nichols, but the 17 car of Cody Cole would spin in turn 1, bringing out the yellow flag. On the restart, again Myers would jump out to the lead, but it was short-lived as the next lap going into turn 1, 2 cars would get together, bringing out another caution. On the restart, it was Myers, Nicholson, and Jeremy Wickham, the top 3. Myers would again jump out on the start and keep his big lead until the 32 car of Ricky Glover Sr. would spin in turn 4. On the final restart, Myers looked like he was going to be the car to beat tonight in the sportsman class, as he would go on and take the checkered flag, locking himself into Saturday night's sportsman A feature. Also locking into Saturday night was Dave Nicholson, Matt Taylor, Jeremy Wickham, John Stowe, Danny Klum, Chris Doss, and Ken Simmons. After his win, Myers would do a small donut in the infield to show his joy. The final A feature of the night would be the always exciting Outlaw feature. Chris Andrews, who put on a show all night long in this class and barely missed out winning the non-wing A feature, would bring the field to the green alongside of Josh Pickle. Andrews would jump out to the early lead over Pickle and was never really challenged. Andrews would gain a straightaway lead until the third-place running car, Blake Holm, would catch a tire and pretty much take himself out of contention. On the only restart of the race, Andrews would once again break away from second-place Pickle, Jake Rosario in third, and now Drew Salisbury in fourth. Andrews would run the short way around the track the whole race and would be uncontended, continuing his hot streak in 2012. Andrews, the 2012 Mike Phillips 66 $10,000 winner, would lock himself into Saturday night's A feature. Along with Andrews, Josh Pickle, Zach Alley, Jake Rosario, Jonathan Beeson, Jarrett Crouch, Drew Salisbury, and Blake Edwards are all locked into Saturday night's big show. Night 1 is now complete. Night 2 is upon us. Who will be the next drivers to lock themselves into Saturday night's big show in their respective classes? Join us tomorrow to find out what happens on Night 2 of the 2012 Race for Life Donnie Ray Crawford Memorial Race at Port City Raceway. We at 600 Scene would like to thank Kaiser Wheels and Sawyer Chassis for their sponsorship, and all the nice folks at Port City Raceway for hosting us here at 600 Scene, so that we can bring you the latest news from the biggest races. Be sure to check back tomorrow for episode number 2 at the Race for Life, because we're always on the scene at 600scene.com.